Hello and welcome. In this part of the video, we are going to perform some transformation and cleaning on our data, and we will be using Azure Databricks for it. So let's get started. Let's first create a new Azure Databricks workspace. Let's click on create and let's select a resource group that we previously created, and that was ETLDB. Now let's give a name to our workspace. Let's give resource Databricks. Regions Central India, pricing tier premium is also fine. Rest all we do not need to change. Just go to review and create a few validation checks. Now click on create. This will submit our deployment for Azure Databricks workspace. And when our deployment is complete, we will be creating a new cluster to perform some operations. So let's wait for it. The deployment for Azure Databricks is now complete. So we will go to the resource and then launch the Databricks workspace. And after it has signed in using the Entra ID, we are going to create a new cluster inside our Databricks so that we can perform the PySpark operations on our data. Let's wait for it to load. Now our Databricks has started, so let's go to compute and we will create a new compute. Let's change. Okay, we can change the runtime to 14.3 LTS and worker type to standard DS3v2. This will be fine for however much we want to perform. Let's create our compute. It will take a few minutes to create the compute. So in the meantime, let's create a new notebook. So click on the plus new and go to notebook. And in here, what we will do is connect our Azure SQL database to the Azure Databricks. Let's wait for it to load. Now inside the new notebook, let's change the name. Let's give PySpark project, or you can give anything you want to give. Now onto the first cell, we are going to attach or connect our Azure SQL database to our Azure Databricks. So let's use the command, and this is the command we will use. The first thing is creating a DF. So we will use path.read.format and JDBC to connect to our Azure SQL database. Now we will give the URL. So the URL will be jdbc colon SQL server colon double slash, then the name of our or the name or the URL of our Azure SQL DB. How you can get it? Go to Azure SQL server and let me show you. Inside the SQL server, inside our Azure SQL database, we get the server name. Here you can see we will copy it and paste it here, and after that we need to give colon the port number. The port number is 1433, then semicolon we will give the database name, which is retail. You can get this is the name of our database. Then after that we will give the DB table, and the table we created was outlet. How you can get the name, let me show you. So inside our Azure database, go to query editor. Let's me give the password. Inside tables, we will have the dbo.outlet. We ran a query to create the table and input data. So the table name is outlet. And then we will need to give the SQL administration password. Mine was server admin and password 123. You can use yours. Now let's run it. Okay, so our cluster has been created. So let's attach it as well. This will fetch the data from the Azure SQL database and display it as well. Let's collapse this. And our Spark job is now running. It will take a few more seconds to display the data, and here you can see. So let me show you the data properly. So we can use display and inside give df. Let's run this cell. So this will show us the data in a proper structured format. Here you can see entirety of the data. Next thing we want to do is clean our data. So let's start with the cleaning. So the first thing we are going to clean is the outlet size column. Here you can see there are a few null values. So what we are going to do is replace these null values with small so that our data is cleaned. Let's type the query. So give df equals to df dot na dot fill. So this will fill the null values, and what where we want to fill it, let me give, it is outlet size, copy column name, and let's give here, this will be the outlet size. And how we want to replace it with, we want to replace it with small. So this is the query. Now in the next line, let me just also display the df, display df, and let's run this query. This will fill the null values in outlet size with small. So let me show you. Here you can see there were pretty much a lot of null values. Now they have all been replaced with small. The next thing we want to do is clean the outlet location type. Here you can see there are a few null values in outlet location type. So what we are going to do is replace these null values with tier 1. Now let's go to the next cell. Again, pretty much the same command, df equals to df dot na dot fill, and we will give, let's copy the name, copy column name, and paste it here. And what we want to replace it with, we want to replace it with tier 1. Tier 1. Let's also give a space. Now in the next line, let's display the df, and let's run this cell. So let me show you. Here you can see the outlet location type, the null values have been replaced with tier 1. Now the next thing we want to do is, here you can see in the item fat content, some places there is written LF instead of low fat. So what we are going to do is replace LF with low fat. So how do we do that? Give df equals to df dot replace, and then what we want to replace. Okay, so it already gave you the preview, but still what we want to replace, we want to replace LF with what we want to replace, we want to replace it with low fat, and the column name we want to replace it in is, sorry, single one, and let's copy the column, item fat content, copy column name, and in the next line let's also display the df, and let's run it. So here our value where low fat is not written and LF was written will all be replaced with low fat. So now the next thing we need to do is mount our Azure Blob Storage to Databricks. So let's use the command. And here is the command. I have just copied it from Databricks page. So just type on Google mount Databricks to Azure Blob, and we can use this Azure Database documentation. Let it load, and the first command will be the one we need to use. So in the meantime, what we need to do is give the container name. So let's get our container name, which is outlet. And our storage account name. This is our storage account. Let's give the storage account name. Now we can give a mount point name. Here you can see the command. It's pretty much the same I have copied. Just you can give any mount point name. I will give report, and then we need to give the storage account name again here. So let's give it. Then we need the scope name and the key name. So we actually do not need the DB util secrets because we are using Azure Databricks. So what we need to give is just the access keys. Let me. So in this format, we need to give the access key. And where can we get the access key? Go to Azure Databricks. Sorry, go to your storage account. Now go to security and networking, and here you can see access keys. Let's You can use any key, just click on show and copy it. This is the key, not the connection string. Make sure you get the key. Now let's paste the access key here. Okay, it wasn't copied. It's all right. And I have copied it to a sticky notes, and let's just give it now. Now we have given our access key. This will mount our Azure Blob Storage to Databricks so that we can paste our data into. Now let's run this to make the connection. And our connection was successful. The next thing we want to do is check if our file system is connected properly. So we will be using dbutils dot file system dot ls and then mnt dot report the mount point we gave. If we run it, we get the output. So here you can see it's connected successfully. Now what we want is to paste or copy our data that we just cleaned. This data exact, to be honest, and we want to paste it inside our Azure Blob Storage. So let me show you how we can do. So the command for that is df.write.options, and we are giving header equals to true to get the first line of the data, that is item identifier, item weight, etc. as header, and then we give the CSV. So we are going to store it in a CSV point, and we are giving the mount point that we gave while creating our DF. So let me show you. Here the mount point we gave /mnt/report. So we are using that mount point, and inside that we are creating a container or a directory named outlet. So now let's try to run this. So this will write our data into the Azure Blob Storage, and here you can see it was successful. Now let's go to our Azure Data Storage, and inside the outlet container there should be a container or a directory named outlet. Let's open it. The data will be inside the part file. So let me show you, and here you can see now this data does not have LF for low fat, does not have any null values, or as such this is perfectly clean data. Now that's all for this session. Thank you.